Welcome back to the Workplace Minute, sponsored by WorkHuman. I'm Steve Boese, and thanks for joining me all this week as we've unpacked the major workforce and workplace impacts of the One Big Beautiful Bill. For this final episode in the series, we're zooming out, connecting the dots across the provisions we've covered so far, and taking a look at what this sweeping legislation could mean for the overall business climate, for jobs and employment, and what employers can do to stay ready for what's next. Let's quickly recap what we've covered this week. On Monday, we explored the bill's landmark change to how tipped income is taxed. For the first time, tips earned in direct service industries like restaurants, hospitality, or salons will no longer be counted as federal taxable income up to a cap. That's a big win for low-wage workers who depend on tips, and it's being hailed as a long overdue recognition of how modern service jobs actually work. But it also means employers need to ensure accurate tip reporting and might face new administrative pressures from employees eager to claim the full benefit. On Tuesday, we dug into the new federal income tax deduction for overtime pay, up to $12,500 for individuals and $25,000 for joint filers. The bill adds a generous above-the-line deduction, which has the potential to put more money into the pockets of millions of hourly workers. Supporters say it rewards hard work and offers financial relief, but critics note that the benefit may be skewed towards higher earners or may encourage longer work weeks without solving the root causes of wage stagnation. Regardless, employers will need to track overtime earnings more carefully than ever to ensure proper payroll reporting and compliance. Then on Wednesday, we took a look at one of the more hotly contested provisions of the bill, the rollback of clean energy investment incentives. With the elimination of key tax credits for solar, wind, battery storage, and clean hydrogen, we may see a major slowdown in one of the country's fastest-growing job sectors. Already, groups like Solar Energy Industries Association are warning hundreds of thousands of potential job losses in the coming years. It's a gut punch to states and communities that were building workforce pipelines around clean energy, and employers in that sector need to plan accordingly. And then yesterday, we covered a quieter but still significant decision, the removal from the bill of a proposed federal ban on state-level AI hiring regulations. The House version originally would have preempted all state and local laws regulating how artificial intelligence is used in hiring and HR systems, including bias audit requirements and disclosure rules. But after strong backlash, especially from civil rights groups and labor advocates, the Senate stripped that provision from the final bill. That means HR leaders and tech buyers will still need to navigate a patchwork of state rules with no broad federal shield. It's a relief for advocates of ethical AI, but a reminder that the regulatory complexity is only growing. So what does it all add up to? The Big Beautiful Bill is being celebrated by its supporters as a bold pro-worker, pro-growth, pro-America reset. By delivering direct tax relief to tip workers and overtime earners, and by winding down certain industry subsidies, bill supporters position it as a populist, middle-class focused package. At the same time, though, the long-term impacts on sectors like green energy, clean tech manufacturing, and AI innovation could be negative and far-reaching. For the broader business climate, the bill sends mixed signals. On the one hand, the tax relief for service and hourly workers may support additional consumer spending and help employers with retention in lower-wage, high-turnover industries. On the other hand, by pulling back from the green energy incentives and sowing more uncertainty in AI compliance frameworks, it may cause hesitation in industries that have been growing rapidly and creating high-skilled, high-wage jobs. In terms of employment, the bill's short-term impact is likely positive for the service sector and for most hourly workers, but the outlook dims for clean energy workers and perhaps some tech fields as well. Labor economists are watching closely to see if the overtime and tip tax changes will encourage more workforce participation or longer hours, especially in areas that are struggling to fill jobs. And for the economy overall, the bill is unlikely to have an immediate recessionary effect. In fact, the direct tax relief may act as a modest fiscal stimulus, but long-term growth could be impacted by reduced investments in energy infrastructure and uncertainty about how employers will adjust to the new rules, especially as they relate to staffing, training, and compliance. So what should employers do next? I think we should close this series with a few smart recommendations for HR and business leaders to consider as this big, beautiful bill becomes another part of the regulatory landscape. First, Stay proactive on compliance. Whether it's new W-2 reporting rules for overtime and tip income or state-by-state AI laws, don't assume what worked in 2024 and so far this year will continue to work in the future. Audit your payroll systems, talk to your vendors, and prepare for tighter scrutiny and more questions from regulators and from employees. 2, reassess your workforce strategy. If you're in a green energy adjacent industry or in a state with strong AI regulations, make sure you revisit your talent and investment plans and prepare for potential slowdowns or shifts in where funding or talent goes. 3, train your managers. Frontline managers need to understand the new tax rules around tips and overtime, both to answer employee questions and to ensure correct time tracking and classification. 4, strengthen your vendor oversight. If you use third-party AI tools for hiring, performance management, compensation, or any other HR function, demand transparency. Ask for bias audits, get the documentation. You're still on the hook for the outcomes. And be aware of any state or local laws that address the use of AI in hiring, performance, and other HR functions. And finally, communicate clearly and frequently. Employees are going to hear about no tax on tips and no tax on overtime and come to HR with questions. So have your talking points ready, understand the eligibility, and be prepared to explain what the changes on their paychecks mean and what they don't mean. That's it for episode 5 and for this week's special series on the Big Beautiful Bill. Thanks so much for listening, and a big thank you to WorkHuman for supporting the Workplace Minute. If you found this series helpful, please subscribe and share it with your colleagues. We'll be back next week with more fresh takes on the changing world of work. I'm Steve Boese, and this has been the Workplace Minute from H3 HR Advisors.